previous video, we were able to look at this of the historical histogram graph or histogram chart that we're able to look at. We said that is that type of graph that shows the frequency distribution of a set of numbers. So in this video, we're going to look at that of the pie chart. So know what pie chart is more like a circle that's being cut into pieces based on the based on the size of based on the size of each of the element that actually is it. But let's actually look at example of it. Let's say this of our let's say we'll give it x, and then we say something like 4 9 7 9, maybe something like 20. Know that when we look at this, we know that 20 tend to be the one or the big guy here. So we can say our pi, which is the pi signifier. We want to do that of the pie chart, so we're going to say our x. Sorry, not about that. So let's say we're going to say s, because x, this is actually what we're trying to target. So let's actually run it to see example. Remember that the formula that this pie chart tend to make use of is, you can actually call it x divided by some of the you can say some x. Why this x that we have here is actually signify each of the elements. Just like we're trying to loop through each of the elements here, and we're going to divide. Let's actually for that, and then we're trying to divide each of the element by the sum of these entire can say when you sum this entire list. Let's say we know that this is 29 plus 7, this is actually 36. 36 plus 4, this is actually 40. It's just like saying 4 divided by 40, and then it's going to be presented on the screen. So let's actually see example. Let's actually look at what we actually got. Let me comment this out. So let me go down a little bit. So this is it. This is what we actually have here. So we have that. We all know that this guy is going to be that of the 20, which is the biggest, and then this is the smallest. That of the and that should be that of the 4 is smallest. Let's actually look at, you know that when it comes to this of the pie chart that we have, pie chart tend to start here as the beginning point. This is more like a starting point. So we're going to look at how we can actually set our starting point. To change our starting point, and a default is actually starting point, meaning that it's going to go from here, it goes in the other anti-clockwise direction. So that's just basically how these pie charts tend to work. So we're expected that this should be that of the first element, second element, third element, and the last element. Let's actually look at this. We look at this is actually signify 4, and in nutshell, we know that this guy is the smallest, followed by 7. We know that this green guy is actually bigger than this guy. So this signifies 9, and all of them, the 20 is the biggest. So even though we tweak this value over and over, so let's actually set this 20 to let's move this 0 and set it to 2. So let's actually see what I'm trying to say concerning that of the starting point and that of the so as we can actually see here, you can actually see that since this is the starting point that we know, so this is should be the first element. Let's look at it, which is actually 4, and then we'll have the 7 here. 9 now became the biggest, and then we'll have 2, which is that automatically is going to actually be given a different color. You can start to set this color, but let's look at, because right now we don't actually know that, just because if you're actually new to this pie chart, it can still be a little bit confusing. But since I know how this works, so what if you're still confused, or maybe you want to present this data to maybe to a company or maybe to an institution, and then you give them this kind of data without any labels on it, or maybe this kind of output without any label on it. I don't think even you yourself are going to enjoy this type of data. So we're going to try to give it a label. To do that, we're just going to let's say we can create a list of that have those of the labels. So we can say my labels label, then maybe number that is going to be the exact amount of values that we have here. So this is actually total of 4. So let's say the first one, we know that this is the first. I can say 4, so now we know which one actually belongs to. So we can say 7. Remember, it has to be a string. So the second one is actually that of the 9, and the last one is going to be that of the 2. So inside of this of our plt.py, so we can say that of the labels. We are going to set it to that of the my lab. Simple as that. So let's actually run this and see the output. when we look at, since we're actually giving you that of the level, normally this is not actually the best level to actually give it out there. They see better level. You can use that to maybe in case if you are dealing with fruits, you can just set this to maybe the fruit that actually is there. But let's look at this. We can actually see that this is actually signifying that of the 4, like how I explained. This is the 7, and then we'll have this of the 9 that is the bigger than this of the 2, like how I explained earlier. Like, remember that I said that you can actually set and change that or the starting angle, but on a default I don't see the reason. But in case if you want to actually set it, remember that when you draw a straight line from this middle point, like how we actually set here, this is actually 0 because this is actually starting point 0. But normally, you know, when we on our circle, when we draw a straight line and then other the horizontal, which is this is the vertical and the horizontal line, normally here is actually that of the starting. So but this of the pie chart, this is actually the starting, this signifies the 0, this is actually 90, 180, and that of the 270, this completed to that of the 360. So if you want that of the starting angle to be 90, so you are going to come here and say, so the starting angle here, the 2, so this 4 is not going to be here, since it's the starting angle, so it's not going to be here. This 7 is not going to be here, 20 is not going to be, and this 2 is not going to be here. So this is how you can actually change the starting angle. To do that, you can just come here and say that of the start, I think that should be start angle. Then you can set it to 90 degree. Automatically the start is that of the 0. So 90, you can set it to that is that 180, or you can set it to 270. But I prefer that of the default, so I'm not going to change anything right here. Remember that this is actually what we're actually on. So let's say there's something called actually explode. What I mean by explode, let's say you want to get each one, maybe the bigger guy to be separated by from the that of the main element or the other element. So how we can do this, you can actually set an extra parameter, which you can, let's say I call it my explode. So in case you don't understand, let's actually do an example for you to understand it. So you can say my explode, which is my explode. So we can just set it, so it's going to be a list of elements. Let's say I want this of the biggest guy, which is 9, to exist more. Why did this guy pop up? So I can set the other one to be 0, 0, and then the other one to maybe 0.2, and then I can set this to be 0. So when I come to and say explode, it's going to be explode. I'm going to set it my what? Explode. Simple as that. This may explode is actually referring to this may explode here. So it's referring to this explode is the actual parameter you can set on this of the pi function. So other one, the explode is going to be 0, 0, and this 9, since is the third element on the list, is going to explode outside. You can also set that of the shadow. Remember that you can also set the color, create a list of the color, and then for that of the color parameter, I'm going to set that of the color. But let's actually see example. So as we can see that we set the value, since 9 we set it to be 0.2, then it actually moved out from the or the particular set. So you can actually set that or the more the explode. You can set it maybe something like 5, it's going to explode that. You can actually explode this or the other one. So you can see this pie chart tends to have a whole lot of advantage, but it's on your based on your case. It depends on what you want to actually make use of. You can actually set that of the shadow to actually give each of them the shadow, because right now it's looking plain, but we're still going to get much into that on our when we start our machine learning tutorial. So you can also actually add that of the legend also, to add that of the legend, that of the legend, because we have this is the explode. So to actually add that of the legend, let's actually add the shadow. So we can set that of the shadow to be actually true, and then to add that of the legend, so we are going to come here and see our plt the what legend. Simple as that. Automatically going to add that or the functionality of the legend for us. So let's actually run this and see what time. As we can see here now, this is what we actually have currently. This is actually the legend for blue. It's giving the color blue. 7 is giving the color of this guy. Green is giving the 9. 2. You can just add this. Add this is actually what's actually called legend. This legend you can actually give it a title. Except you can actually change all these values to a particular job, but I don't see the need to doing that. You can see the effect of this of the shadow that we have here. So I'll be able to see in the next video. This is where I'm going to stop on this video. So thank you.